Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome to EVTN News. So, it was a busy week, and not just in the American political scene. So, we'll get to that shortly. I have a policy, not really a policy, kind of an unofficial thing on this channel. I don't talk a lot about politics, but my first story has to do with politics. So, a parish in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. permitted its extraordinary ministers to wear Kamala Harris campaign t-shirts while distributing Holy Communion at a Sunday Mass immediately preceding Election Day. Father Ray Moore, the pastor at St. Thomas More Parish, on Sunday, October 27th, announced that all parishioners should wear their election apparel. There were some cheers at this announcement. So, yes, that is what happened. The following Sunday, a lady was wearing a Harris shirt, handing out communion, and you could. There's many ways you could eliminate that. You could have avoided that scandal. One is not having Eucharistic ministers, of course. If you go to the Latin Mass, they don't have them. And another is, that solves the whole problem there. But also the pastor couldn't maybe refrain from encouraging his pro-communist parishioners from wearing political stuff. Anyway, that's Archdiocese of Washington. Oh, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So I'm going to get to Archdiocese of Washington, so I'll save that for later. Right now, though, I'm going to go to the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and Pope Francis on last Monday accepted the resignation of Milwaukee Archbishop Jerome Listecki and named Chicago Auxiliary Bishop Jeffrey Grobe to be his successor. With the November 4th appointment, the 63-year-old Grobe will be returning to his birth state of Wisconsin. The prelate was born to dairy farmers in the town of Cross Plains in 1961. He was ordained a priest for the Archdiocese of Chicago in 1992. Now, I would guess if that's the timeline, it would line up with Bernardine, but I can't say for sure. Grobe served as the judicial vicar for the Chicago Archdiocese for 2 years before he was named its chancellor in 2017. So the Chicago connection certainly raises some concerns. But he was also an auxiliary bishop, and auxiliary bishops hardly ever get promoted unless Francis really likes you. So, okay. But he replaces Listecki, and Listecki wrote a letter to the USCCB in 2021, expressing concern that gender misidentified persons could be inadvertently admitted to seminaries and that they need to come up with a plan to ensure it doesn't happen. So no surprise that Francis prioritized him to be replaced. So, there's that. I think it was last week where I talked about Bishop Sean McKnight banning bad music. He banned some of the bad music, not all of it. Just days after implementing the formal ban on a dozen doctrinally problematic hymns, Bishop Sean McKnight of the Diocese of Jefferson City, Missouri, has rescinded his original decree, instead opening a year-long consultation process to determine how sacred music can best be used to encourage active participation in the liturgy. So this is going down the wrong path really quickly. So he initially banned these hymns, and we were like, I was like, oh great, I'm very surprised. But I think what happened was the blue hairs in the parish, or the purple hairs, or whatever you call them, they probably complained, and he's the bishop. They probably threatened a revolt. He said, we had next week's music planned out, and you had to ban it. But anyway, listen to this. Pointing to Pope Francis' emphasis on synodality, the pontiff's call for the whole church, including lay people, to collaboratively seek the guidance of the Holy Spirit through prayer, listening, dialogue, and openness. McKnight wrote that he has ordered a more comprehensive consultation with the relevant parties within the diocese related to sacred music. Although, if you're singing at the Novus Ordo, there's not really a whole lot of sacred music. Actually, there's pretty much none. But, yeah, just go on thinking that it is, and pretend like you didn't know. But yeah, so it's gonna get more synodal, and so I'm sure the song "All Are Welcome" will not be banned then if you're referencing synodality, active participation, and you're talking about sacred music. Yeah, sacred music is not the stuff that's sung at Novus Ordos. I'm sorry to break the news. Okay, going to J.D. Vance. So, video footage has resurfaced of J.D. Vance briefly criticizing Pope Francis' crackdown on the traditional Latin Mass during a 2021 Napa Institute virtual conference. Vance said at the conference, he said, "I think that one of the problems that we have is that we're not totally sure how to deal with what should be internal family disputes within the Catholic Church in the world of social media. One of the things I'm just not totally sure how to deal with as a public figure who sometimes does disagree and agree to with the Holy Father on some core issues is my role, and is what is my role, especially as a new Catholic, a Catholic who has some public voice. Like, what should I do when, for example, the Pope issues an order on the Latin Mass that I think is not the right order for the Church? Even though I'm not a big Latin Mass guy, it felt wrong." So um, you can see why Listecki was removed or replaced, I guess, not removed. Although I don't know what Rui stood on other issues, but I'm certain that Francis sees the connection with the Latin Mass and Trump, even though it's not a solid connection there. I mean, certainly the ones that attend the Latin Mass are more, they take their Catholic faith more into account whenever they vote, which would have led some of them to support, the next president. But yeah, so J.D. Vance is against Latin Mass bans, so that's nice. And if he does happen to take over the presidency, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Trump isn't the youngest person in the world. It's possible. I mean, is it likely? I'm not saying it's likely, but there's potential for it. You can't ignore it. So, okay. Anyway, okay. Speaking of Washington D.C. New inside information, and this isn't political. I mean, I guess if you talk about church politics, new inside information from the Pillar. When the three McCarrick Cardinals met with Francis during the synod, remember I talked about that a few weeks ago, they intentionally excluded Cardinal Gregory to present McElroy as a recommendation for his successor. Remember, Cardinal Gregory's health is not, I guess he's not in the greatest of health and looking to take a retirement sooner rather than later. So they presented McElroy as his successor. And the thing about Washington is that, well, I mean, they pay their archbishop a substantial amount. I mean, I think Cardinal Wuerl was getting like he was getting mega money. Like one of the years he got $1 million, the retired archbishop's fund. And he's really banking the money there. So that's one of the things. But then also, there's documents in the Archdiocese of Washington that if they were publicly disclosed, it would be catastrophic for certain people who helped McCarrick. The Vatican did their investigation, and it didn't implicate anyone that's currently in power. Surprise, surprise, because they're in power in the Francis Church. That's how it works. But they want someone there to cover it up so that their information, so that they do not get exposed, I guess is what you would say. Like McCarrick did. Yeah, because when that happens, you're done. You're completely done. Cardinal World was kind of the fall guy, and that was it. And he didn't lose any money off of it. All right, so these McCarrick Cardinals also complained about Cardinal Pierre, the nuncio for the United States, taking too long to review possible candidates for bishop promotions. Cardinal Pierre's not a good guy either, but it's very interesting to see, like, rival factions and the bad guys, the modernists. They're really feeling the heat. And this is also interesting here. One Roman official close to the Secretariat of State told the Pillar that the Vatican was concerned that the next archbishop would be able to deal with the next administration on a working basis. The quote is, "What is not needed is a rival personality who creates conflicts. Things will be tense already." They're talking about Trump and the Archdiocese of Washington. So Cardinal Gregory, he has no relationship with the Trump administration because he criticized, he famously criticized Trump. Trump held a Bible outside of the John Paul II shrine, got his picture taken, and Gregory went nuts on that. Yeah, he's publicly opposed. He's publicly opposed conservatives, not just politically, of course, theologically as well. And yeah, so basically, the Vatican doesn't want they don't want an abrasive. Well, I mean, maybe it's Pierre. Pierre doesn't want necessarily an abrasive figure. He was already insulted. He was already criticized Trump. That would roll out like Gregory Tobin, McElroy, and even Stowe. They've all publicly criticized Trump, and you're not going to have a working relationship. I don't know that a lot of people would. Honestly, there's not a lot of. I mean, you'd have to be a good bishop, and Francis isn't into that. He's not going to promote the good guys. So Louisville Archbishop Shelton Faber continues to be discussed among those among a possible candidate for Washington. So keep an eye on that, and then if he's promoted, then yeah, there'd be some movement. Stowe's getting. I'm convinced Stowe is going to be getting his promotion soon. There's no question in my mind. And in fact, this week is the USCCB meeting. So there's probably going to be some more personnel discussions there as well. And maybe there'll be some decisions made before Christmas, and then see what happens. Okay, getting to the big news. Strickland was removed about a year ago. He was removed from. He was kicked out of his diocese about a year ago by Francis, and just on, I think it was late Friday, maybe, the apostolic administrator, the bishop who's filling in for Tyler, Texas, until the Vatican decides on a replacement. He banned the Latin Mass at the Cathedral. So he said, okay, let me skim through here. He said, after being appointed, this is Bishop Joe Vasquez. He said, after being appointed as an apostolic administrator for the Diocese of Tyler, I submitted a letter to the Vatican Dicastery for Divine Worship asking for guidance on how to implement Traditionis Custodes in the diocese. Having received a reply from the dicastery, I wish to share with you some information about the path forward in the Diocese of Tyler. Now keep in mind here This guy has like basically no authority. He's not even the real bishop of these, but he's already asking them about banning the Latin Mass. So that's pretty pathetic, if you ask me. He said, following the guidance of the Holy See, celebrations of the 62 Missal at the Cathedral Immaculate Conception will come to an end on November 30th. So there's an FSSP parish, and that's the only place where they can have Latin Mass. And he said, "Well, this is particularly ridiculous." He said, "While this transition may be difficult for some, my hope is that you will open your hearts and move forward on this path with faith and trust. I pray you will experience a deepened unity with the whole church and a greater awareness of the liturgical richness of the ordinary form of the Roman liturgy," which is very interesting because Francis banned that terminology anyway. "As apostolic administrator, please be assured of my pastoral concern for you." That's a big sorry about your luck. You're going to have the Novus Ordo and like it. And we're going to, if you don't like it, we'll force you to like it. So, what a jerk. What an absolute jerk. So, thanks for nothing, Bishop. But that's what he was appointed there to do. Maybe he'll get a pat on the back from the Vatican, a Chairman Mao badge. I don't know. So, good job. Okay. All right. So going back to the Synod, when the National Catholic Register asked Cardinal Hollerich at the end of the Synod why traditional Catholics and their views on vocations and other issues were not considered in the final stages of the process, he replied, "I have people who celebrate Mass in the old rite and I'm friends with them. I can't imagine in a postmodern world getting I can't imagine in a postmodern world getting attracted by that. I do not condemn that." So he didn't answer the question. When pressed further on the question, he responded by saying that traditional Catholicism was not a topic for discussion. I assume that's at the Synod. Adding, "We are not against them." Sure. "We were not for them." Well, one of those statements is true. Asked how such an approach can be called synodal when it is supposed to include listening to all points of view, he said, "We have discussed things brought up from the people of God, and these people have not written to us." Oh, I know for a fact many traditionalists participated in the Synod. Where is our voice? The Cardinal was again asked about the issue outside the press hall, but he said he was too tired before going into a room to be interviewed by Vatican media. Asked one more time if he could explain why traditional Catholicism was not included. He again declined, saying he had young people to see who were waiting for him. So he basically sidestepped the question every second of the way. And the reason is they don't like it. They don't like us. But you know who's on the peripheries? They're forcing us on the peripheries. They're forcing us on the margins. We are being marginalized by the Francis Church. And I think more and more it's becoming increasingly obvious that they are the H word, hypocrites. Because they say, oh, we need to hear from everyone's voices, but not you, you rigid traditionalists. We're going to ban your Mass and we're not going to listen to you. They want to listen to heretics. They want to listen to atheists, pagans, non-Catholics, but they won't listen to us. That's okay. Their time's coming to an end very soon. Not soon enough, though. Okay. Cardinal Zen posted on his blog, and this was very welcome to see him post this. He said, "From the synods held under Pope Francis, we can see that he wants to change the Church's doctrines or disciplines each time, rather than discuss how to safeguard these doctrines disciplines." Thank you, Cardinal Zen, finally saying something about Pope Francis. Whenever Cardinal Zen was very critical of the Vatican Chinese deal, he criticized Parolin and not Francis. He said, "Oh, Parolin's in Francis's ear, and Francis is getting bad information." But now he finally realized, he saw the light. Francis is trying to Francis is trying to destroy church doctrine, and he's using the synods to to do what he can to try to accomplish that goal. And it's all Francis, because if he didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen. Same with Latin mass bans. Same with the Vatican China deal. If he didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen. Okay, Zen goes on to say, Francis used the Synod on the Family 2014 to 15. I think he mistyped that by accident. But anyway, to try to let the divorced and remarried Catholics receive Holy Communion, he wanted to use the Synod of the Amazon to introduce the ordination of highly respected married laymen as priests. And for the Synod this time, from the two leading figures he appointed in the documents issued by the Secretariat, we can see that he has some broader goals: to change the hierarchical system of the Church, replace with a democratic group of baptized people, to establish female deacons, opening the way for female priests, and to abolish priestly celibacy, and to change the traditional doctrine on sexual ethics, beginning with the blessings of the LMNOP couples. So Cardinal Zen is finally seeing straight. He's seeing it for what it is, and they've already implemented the LMNOP blessings. They allowed the divorced and remarried Catholics to receive communion, or they allowed, which they can't. They don't have the authority to do that, because they don't have the authority to undermine God's law. They're in the process of changing the hierarchical system, but that's going to take a while for them. And establishing female deacons, well, I wouldn't be surprised before the end of the year to see something happen on that. I don't know what. And I don't know if it will happen, but remember, the LMNOP blessings, I believe that was was published in right before Christmas last year. So yeah. But good on Cardinal Zen. It only took him 92 years to realize it. No, Francis wasn't. Francis wasn't in power for 92 years. It took him the entirety of Francis's papacy to realize that. Okay, and then the last thing here, some concerning statistics. It's an alarming number of children from Catholic families lose their faith during elementary and secondary school. By age 13, 50% fall away from the church. By 18, it's 86%. Okay. So that's not good. Now, coming up this week is the USCCB meeting. So stay tuned. They're going to talk about synodality. I don't know how many video clips I'll have, but hopefully there will be some. I think with synodality, it's going to be really fruity. So, yeah, that's not going to be a thing. Okay. And hello everyone. Thank you for joining the live stream. Okay, communion rails make communion time go so much faster. Yep, and you don't have to hand out all the ciborium to the Eucharistic ministers. Okay. Bergoglio should be fired. I'd be willing to bet that Cardinal Zen is a living saint. Well, he's definitely on the good side of things, I would say. So yeah, I guess just looking ahead, we'll see how much live coverage the USCCB has in the next 2 days, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday and Wednesday I'll be posting videos, maybe Thursday, depending on what I get to, and so I'll be skimming the videos for some quotes, and we'll see. I hope there's some fireworks, but now that Strickland's going there to pray a rosary outside of the building. He's not going inside, even though he could. He's allowed. But since he stopped showing up for the meetings, I think the November meeting last year, he got kicked out like a week before the meeting. So for the last two meetings, they've been pretty subdued and boring because he hasn't been there. So we'll see what we'll see what it brings, but I'll be there for it. I'm not going to be there. I'll be here for it, and I'll post the clips if there's anything good. So you can count on that. That's what gets some views, and it's really grueling. Every year I complain about it a little bit, but that's life, you know. Life is tough. I guess, and that's it's just all part of it, all part of this channel. So, all right. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity. We will not be silent.